Hello, KATHLEEN. How are you?
Hi, Barbie.
I'm so happy to interview. I'm such a big fan of yours. So let's start before I get too nervous and I can talk. For those of us who admire you and follow your career, the last few years have been full of expectations. You came back with Bikini Kill and 𝘼𝙔𝙉𝙉𝙎 almost at the same time. You were active with the 𝘾𝙊𝙉𝙉𝙎, but in that project, you were doing the classic moves like writing, recording, and playing those songs. But in this case, you're playing a repertoire that is 20 years old and more with Bikini Kill. So I want to know, can you pinpoint the moment when you said, it's time to come back? I want to sing those songs again with them and now here?
I definitely had a moment when uh, our horrible president at the time, Donald Trump, was helping get another right-wing, alt-right-wing conservative Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, on to the Supreme Court. And I knew that that meant abortion was no longer going to be legal in the States for very long. And I think that that was really the beginning of like, I need to express all this rage. I can't keep keeping it in, but I didn't know how that was going to manifest itself. I've done nonprofit work. I've done all kinds of stuff that's much quieter. But I think that was a moment where I was like, I just have to start screaming again and singing again and moving again, dancing again. And then I got a call that the Raincoats band from England wanted us to play a show with them. And me, Kathy, and Toby decided to do it. And they kind of got us back together, which was this beautiful circumstance of this band that we loved so much had gotten back together, partially because Kurt Cobain loved them and wrote some liner notes, and he learned about them from Toby Vale, our drummer. And so in a way, Toby helped get the Raincoats back together, and then the Raincoats helped get us back together. So, and their show that night was so amazing. We really just played it so we could be there. So, yeah, it was kind of full circle. And then as we started to play, I realized that I just needed the material in my life again. And it felt fresh to me. It felt brand new. You know, in my 40s, I couldn't have imagined singing those songs. I was like, oh, I wrote those in my 20s. You know, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to do like, you know, kind of play a version of myself on stage. That will be really false. But when it actually happened, it just felt supernatural. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it felt more relevant actually now than it did at the time we originally wrote the material. So it didn't feel fake or nostalgic or like it was a revival, you know?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about that, about the lyrics, because you wrote those lyrics. I think of Double Dare You or Rebel Girl, Suck My Left One. You wrote them when you were almost a teenager, and now you're singing them. And I'm thinking, when you're on stage, do you carry feelings from those times, or maybe you found a different meaning in some of them on stage?
I definitely found a different meaning and carried things from the past. I think, you know, with me, music is something that's very associated with memory. You know how there's those like records that you remember from a specific breakup, or, you know, that was playing on the radio in my childhood when I was in the car. You know, there's these songs that like bring you back. And when it's your own material, it definitely can bring you back to, you know, a smelly practice space you were in when you wrote it, or the moment, you know, we first put out a demo cassette. And I remember, you know, Xeroxing the covers of the cassette and cutting them. And these random memories will come back to me while we're on stage. especially those songs that you mentioned, which is what's got me thinking of it.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I'll have memories of the beginning of the band that will just make me smile, because I didn't think about those as good times for a really long time. It was hard for me to remember the good things that happened in that band because it was a very difficult band to be in. And so to be reliving it with my bandmates next to me and having good memories, and kind of experience more of the joy in the songs, the
Right.
joy in that, wow, I'm able to stand here at this age and express this. And I'm so thankful. And I don't feel as much, I definitely feel as much anger as I did back then, maybe even more. But I think that anger is mixed with so much more joy than it was before, because I'm so happy to still be alive and to
Yes.
be back together with my bandmates who I miss desperately. But then there's also, different parts of songs have different meanings, like maybe a ramp into the chorus that never meant anything to me before, or
Yes.
just wasn't an important part. That part of the song now has a huge meaning and the chorus is less meaningful. So that's been kind of fun to explore as a singer, how the songs have evolved
Yeah,
over time.
and about being a singer, you are singing these songs so many years after with the same band, almost the same band. The audience is not the same, and you're not the same person. Is there anything that you miss from the Kathleen Hanna singer in the early 90s? And is there anything that surprised you now in the 2024? Like you said, wow, I'm singing uh, different in a good way, or there's something in my body different that I like and I didn't imagine I had.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can tell that you have a relationship to this topic as well. Yeah, I think one of the things that I found that's been really great is that, I got trained since Bikini Kill. Like, I got polyps on my vocal cords from singing without good monitors, and we never had our own sound person.
Right. Yeah, the
So,
news.
I ended up having surgery when I was in 𝘼𝙔𝙍 for the vocal polyps I developed in the 90s, doing basement shows and
Right.
screaming my voice out. And I had a wonderful voice teacher who taught me how to breathe correctly and, the different parts of my body that I can bring sound from. And so to bring those techniques to these 30-year-old songs was, I mean, absolutely amazing, because it was almost like getting a redo. You know what I mean? Like, if you put out a record, I mean, to me, live performance has always been the main thing. Live performance is it for me more than the records.
Yes.
And it's sort of like if you're in sports and you just go out there and play to the best of your ability and you get attention for it, and people are like, oh, you're really great at soccer or football or whatever, or you're great at, baseball. And you're like, okay, I'm pretty good. People like me, whatever. And then 20 years later, you're way better at it. And you get to go back to the same stadium and be 100 times better. It feels really great because, I played shows where I would lose my voice in the middle of a set, and I'm not doing that anymore. And I'm hitting the notes from the right place in my body so that I'm not hurting myself. And that feels really great.
You played in so many small places, uh, and now you're playing in these huge festivals and big venues. And the audience, I think maybe you run into the same people from 30 years ago and their children. Uh,
Yeah.
how 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 did it change for you as a singer on stage?
I mean, it's just way better because there's not as much violence. Like, there's
Yeah.
not like, cisgender straight men, throwing chains at my head or pulling me off the stage by my ankles or spitting in my face. So that makes it a lot easier to perform. And I think when you've been through that experience again, and then you're not in that same place and you see, oh, wow, these audiences actually are really respectful and really want us to be here. And, you know, having a multi-generational audience sharing the same space at a time when our country feels like we're about to go to civil war, feels pretty important that, you know, we're just sharing space together, like kids and adults are sharing space together. You know, I don't think there's many times I've been to a show where I've seen, you know, 12-year-olds up to 80-year-olds in the same room. And we used to see that a little bit in the 90s because we would play like community centers and stuff.
Right. Yeah, very different.
And so it'd be like, you know, like just like kind of families would come and they would just be like, whoa, we gotta go. They're cussing too much. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. And the fun game has been, did the kid bring the parent or did the parent bring the kid? Because it's about half and half when we check that. It's like a lot of times it's like, you know, a 15-year-old who's like brings their parent with them. And then sometimes it's, you know, the opposite, but it's kind of special to see like, you know, a mother and daughter concert, you know, going to a concert together and really enjoying it, especially when it's like kind of weird material. You know, it's not like they're going to a Disney movie.
You're going to see that in Argentina because you have so many fans from the 19th and so many young girls right now. And in the 90s, your way of speaking with the audience in these places, in these community centers and other places, both after and during concerts, it was almost therapeutic. How do you handle that interaction today with the social media? Do you speak with the fans like in those times, but I don't know, online?
No, I don't like to talk to people online. I don't really like Instagram and stuff. I feel like you can't have complicated conversations. And if I don't want to read horrible comments that just put me down and are meant to make me feel terrible as a person, then I can't really be on there. So it's sad that it can't be more of a conduit for communication, you know, like letters used to be. But even with letters back in the 90s, at a certain point, I had to stop reading it and just sending people a newsletter because the hate mail was so intense. But I really like communicating in real life on stage. I feel like that in real life experience is getting so much smaller, and we're also mediated by what our life is like on camera. We're almost like constantly filmed and surveilling ourselves at all times, that when I'm on stage, even though I'm being filmed by a bunch of phones, I'm still in the room with people present, and they're present with me and with the band. And I always just really want to relate to them. And you know, we get so much energy from the audience. Like it's really a two-way street. It's like, yeah, there's shows that we just kind of suck because maybe we didn't get enough sleep or, you know, or whatever. The sound is bad, you know, and you just have to work through that. But there's also sometimes the audience just really lifts us up. And I feel like I'm singing these notes like way up high in the air because they're like lifting me up in the air so I can sing. And those shows are always really miraculous, and the ones that, you know, keep you going through the bad shows. So the audience always has a lot to do with it.
Nice. I heard you saying many times on how important it is to evolve thoughts within feminism, change opinions, accept mistakes, and shift focus. I think that if I ask you if there's a good way to fight, you will probably say no. So I want to ask you if there are wrong ways to fight. Like, if you're going to start the feminist revolution, don't do this because I did it and it's terrible.
Well, I definitely think, you know, while it's really important to start things from where you're at, you know, like obviously, you know, get together with your friends, you know, and start talking about things. And that's all a lot of times how things start. I think it's really important not to start an organization that's bigger than a friendship group with only people who are alike each other, ethnically, racially, gender wise, that it's important to start from a position of like, we're going to reach out to people we don't know immediately and have them help us form this, or have us help them form what they're going to form. And for me, like as a white, person who grew up middle class, I definitely now, if I was going to start something, I think I would join someone else's project, and see how I could be helpful to, someone else, as opposed to starting it myself, because I think there's a lot of stuff already by white middle class people that originates in that community. And I don't necessarily think another group started by someone like me needs to happen. So I think I would probably want to join and assist and listen to what's going on in another group, and try and be as helpful and supportive as I could in that way. I definitely think it's important, if you're going to start something, it has to be intersectional at the beginning. You can't add that in later ever. It's always disrespectful, tokenistic, and obnoxious. So that would be my main advice of what not to do.
Okay, good. Because you're a special case, because you started in art for political reasons, and then you turned out to be an incredible artist. So I'm thinking, if you were born in 2004 and you were a 20-year-old angry feminist, do you think that you will start a punk band, or you would be a TikTok activist?
I don't think I would be a TikTok. I mean, I think I would probably make comedy TikToks. I could see that. I think I would
almost
probably
TikTok activist.
Yeah, I think I would definitely use comedy and activism together, probably more likely than music. But I mean, I wanted to sing my whole life, so I'm sure I'd be doing like weird home recordings and putting it on TikTok, and I probably would have been like a SoundCloud a SoundCloud kid making a bunch of terrible stuff. But it's so much harder for people to get heard these days, because there's so many different competing voices, that I almost think it was lucky we started before the internet, because what we were doing appeared to be more unique. Even though it wasn't, because there was tons of feminist women making music, but it just didn't get, the traction that that we did.
Do you think that from that time to now, do you think in music industry, there are things that changed for better and for worse in terms of equality and sexism?
I mean, I'm not really in the music industry proper, because we still do everything pretty
music
DIY.
Scene, music
Yeah,
scene.
music scene. But in terms of the underground, I mean, there's just so many more great bands. Like, I love the Lambrini Girls. I love Gustav. I love Sweeping Promises. I love Problem Patterns. I love Glass Spells. There's just a lot of bands that I really like, and some of them are mixing, activism and humor in their music in a way that I find really appealing. And also just creating new sounds that are really rebellious. Like, I don't think it has to just be the words. I think the way you play music and how you present yourself can be a political action on its own, even if you're singing about flowers or the weather. So I feel like in terms of the quality of music that's out there, there's just so much more, and a lot of it's really great. But I don't think the venues, the promoters, the, labels, the whatever, I don't think they've kept up with what the artists are doing. It's still a lot of bullshit. And I think that, it's great that, we're able to put in a contract, like, we need there to be non-binary bathrooms, like, and that will be respected and understood, that we can, say we need certain things, and it's no longer like, treated like we're crazy and there's no way we're going to get that. But part of that is because we're a bigger band and we're a legacy band and we're treated with a respect as older people, you know, that I mean, and I just wonder if I wonder if it's just as hard for younger bands that aren't straight white guys. You know, as it was for us. Maybe people aren't physically assaulting them as much, but you know, it's hard to be backstage in a room that has dicks drawn all over the walls and then go out and be singing about rape and abuse. Like, and I think that kind of stuff still happens. And I think promoters still can try and rip people off and, you know, not treat bands with respect. You know, you have to have your own sound person if you're a female in a band, because a lot of times there'll be these male sound guys who treat you so horribly and don't give you what you need to do your job, that you're like really trying to climb up a mountain and you're just playing a show. And yet the bands who most need their own sound people can't afford it because they're not assholes who are like, I'm going to sign to a major label and, you know, like do photo shoots for Vogue in my underwear with a guitar. Like, you know, so it's hard. I think one of the hardest things to me is economically the bands who need to have a team around them to support them so they can make their work are always the bands who won't ever have access to that kind of financial support. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yes. No, it makes sense, of course.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that changes come with new problems. For example, here in Argentina, there are women selling thousands of tickets in stadiums and festivals, leading the ranking worldwide. And it's something that had never happened before here. But gradually, they are all starting to have the same face and body, and they are very young. And those role models that we so eagerly sought for young women are now role models of an impossible body and face. And it's like feminism makes a move and capitalism takes that move and transforms it into a new object of control for the patriarchy. Do you feel like some of your movements and achievements have been used for harm with the years?
Yeah, I think you just put that so eloquently, and that felt really good to hear you say, because it's hard for me to explain what you just said, and the way you explained it was like kind of having an aha, like a moment, like, whew, so glad someone said that. I always can't say things like that at the risk of like, I never want to put down another female artist, you know? So like, thank you. Not like you put anybody down, but you know what I'm saying? It's like
yeah, but you know, we are taking so much care of what we say that then
it's like, no, we got to be honest. It's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I feel like definitely in the 90s there was a thing where, you know, the word girl became really popular and we were a part of that. And then it turned into this thing, at least here, called do me feminism, which was like about these, like, you know, I can be sexy and be a feminist and be, you know, whatever. And also I think about capitalism, it's like, yeah, anything can just be co-opted so that, you know, you're talking about, you know, a revolution in terms of the way we think about gender or who we assign personhood to. And then it's the line that you were using in your fanzine is now in a mascara commercial.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've seen that a million times with Bikini Kill, especially because we used a lot of like slogans and had a lot of catchy like song titles. And there's a million times when those have been used in like horrible, hideous ways. I mean, our fanzine was called Girl Power before that phrase was really used widely.
Yeah.
And then we saw the Spice Girls use it. And
you were too good in marketing.
Yeah. Well, that was, I mean, you know, part of the reason that that we were is I specifically wanted to use marketing as part of our DIY strategy, because I just kept saying, why does Coca-Cola have millions and billions of dollars to force these stupid, sugar drinks down our throats? And feminism at the time was really dying. And even people who were intelligent were like, oh, we don't need it anymore. And I was just like, well, then how come domestic violence and rape still exists if we don't need it anymore? We obviously need it. And, me and my friends were seeing it in our lives every day in the roadblocks that were thrown in front of us. So we knew it was there, but we're constantly being told, no, it's not there. It's not there. So for me, I wanted to use those advertising strategies like catchy slogans and graphics as a way to advertise for feminism and be like, I'm going to use this tool that has been used in a horrible way in a good way, which is very much like the internet. It can be a tool for evil or a tool for good, but then it was very easy to co-opt,
Yes.
It was very easy to co-opt. And it's a difficult process when you're in your 20s to watch, but I think looking back on it, I just always think, well, the businessmen can make their money and do their thing, and I can let that, by the time they get a hold of it, I've already moved on as an artist into the next thing I'm doing.
Oh, well,
like,
you did it. You did it like,
you know what I mean?
So many times.
It's like we all, as artists, like, we're just going to keep making stuff.
Right.
So whatever the mainstream does to like rip us off or like manipulate our work or whatever, we can't control that. That's not up to us. So, but they don't have their own ideas. We still have ideas, and that's where the power is in the actual ideas. So like, we can just keep generating stuff all the time, and that's really awesome.
Well,
and they're just stuck stealing, our crumbs off of our table to try to sell their stupid products. And again, we can't change that. I mean, until we dismantle capitalism, which obviously is the ultimate goal.
It's with the rise of the right-wing parties and figures like Donald Trump in Argentina, now it's Milei, there's a big debate about art and politics. And I don't want to talk about all music styles, but I want to talk about the rebel ones, like rock, hardcore, punk. Do you believe they can exist without being politicized?
Yeah, I mean, I think we know the answer to that is yes, because they do exist and they make a lot of money and they headline festivals, and like, I'll be over with 𝘍𝙍𝙍𝙍 playing at 3:00 in the daytime at the same festival. If I take their invitation or, get asked at the last minute because they were getting complaints that there weren't enough women on the festival and getting offered, 1/10 what these bands are being offered. So I know that they can and do and will exist, and they're very popular. Do I think that music exists outside of politics? Absolutely not. Like, everything is connected. But I also believe that there's a million ways to be political. Like, these bands, to me, it's not that they're not political. It's that they're right wing or they're conservative at the very least, because if you're upholding the status quo, you're saying it's okay. And that's a political statement in its own. You're not just neutral. It's like, if you at this point, while, the United States and Israel are enacting genocide on the Palestinian people, if you're like singing about what a jerk your girlfriend is, you're saying a statement that that's what you care about the most in the world, and that you have the privilege to care the most about that stupid thing. And that's a political statement. It's not just apathy, it's a statement. And I always really reject that idea that's like, and even though in this conversation, for language sake, we'll say, oh, political band or, stuff like that, I always try to say progressive or something like that. Like, if you have progressive politics and you're in a band, but these people have retrogressive politics. They are looking backwards. They have Trump-like politics, or it's not just apathy. it's not just that they don't care or they're neutral. There is no neutrality. It's like they are right wing or at the very least conservative if they're not addressing anything in their music or in the way that they do their business. Because I do believe that there's a place for people who just write about relationships. I do believe that there's a place for people who just make beautiful things. I don't think that's apolitical. I think if they choose not to do anything radical with the way that they deal with the world, it is. But, you know, there's a lot of people who are in so much pain, they don't want to see it reflected back to them in a Bikini Kill song. And I respect that, you know,
Yeah.
and if they want to like get out of their pain by listening to something that is more just like about everyday life or, you know, about looking up at the stars, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with bands like that. I think there's wrong with bands that are singing sexist and racist lyrics and operating in a sexist and racist way. And I think complete apathy is a choice. Hello, Futurock. This is Kathleen Hanna from Bikini Kill and 𝘼𝙔𝙐𝙉𝙍𝙍. Love to be on this show.